Welcome to Here's the Memo Conversations, a space where I sit down with inspired guests who have navigated some of life's greatest challenges with resilience. They're here to share their stories to offer you love, connection, and hope on your own journey. Because remember, we're all just walking each other home. I'm so excited for today's episode because I'm here with one of my dearest, oldest friends, Clarissa Dane Hughes. Clarissa was born in Boston, or right outside of Boston, and I met her in New York City, and she's lived in Florida since 2002. She is a brilliant musician and photographer, a wife and a mom, among many other things, and I'm having her on today because Clarissa lost her house in Hurricane Helene, and because she's gone before us with this terrible tragedy, and a lot of people in Los Angeles have faced this more recently, I thought it would be really an apropos interview to do. So Clarissa, thank you so much for being here and being willing to share your story.
Hi, Aim. Thank you for having me. I really am so excited to talk to you and so excited about your podcast.
Thank you so much. Well, before we get into it, I just want to say how I met Clarissa. I met her many years ago. We lived on the same street in New York City. And I was like, who is that hot chick, you know? And you were so cool. And you were actually instrumental in me meeting a lot of mommy friends. I was pregnant when I met Clarissa, and you were recently divorced. And Clarissa would hang out with us moms, and we'd kind of have these spiritually connected mommy groups. And then the next thing we knew, she was dating her hot neighbor in her building, and then she was moving to Florida, right? So what do you remember about that time?
Basically, yeah. I just remember, I don't know, I was so inspired by all of you guys. You were living your lives. I really had a turn from my career-oriented thinking to, I think there's more than this. So watching my friends who actually had been very successful in their careers as well, want to build a life with their husbands and have a family, it was intriguing to me. And I knew my clock was ticking, but it wasn't something that I really ever felt I wanted. I wasn't one of those girls that was like, I want to get married and have kids. I wanted a career. I was 100% career focused. But I had issues with my career, and I just went down some rough roads, and I was open. I prayed a lot, and I met my husband, and it just kind of fell into place in such a miraculous way. And you were also inspirational to me.
Yeah, it was fun. We all went to your wedding in Florida. I also remember Clarissa had two adorable dogs, and I came straight to your house on 9/11. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Oh, gosh, I mean, that was a crazy, crazy time. And when we talk about it now, like when I talk about it with my kids, there's so many people that are completely unaware of what that felt like and what it was. And I thought I lost my brother, and it was just absolutely devastating. So to think all these years later, to look back on that is really a hard thing. It was hard for me to leave New York, to tell you the truth. We were already en route to Florida. We were renovating the apartment, and I felt sort of a betrayal leaving New York because there was such a bond after that happened with the city, you know?
Yeah, this is not a podcast about 9/11, but I remember feeling so fiercely loyal to New York. And part of me was like, you got to get out of here. But the other part of me was like, I'm never leaving. And there was such a bond in the city, like you said. Okay, getting back to today, the reason I wanted to interview you, Clarissa, is you recently lost your home in Hurricane Helene in Florida. And it was devastating. And this is so topical because of what's gone on out here in Los Angeles. So many people are in the same situation, unhoused, completely displaced because they've lost their home.
Yeah, my heart is just wrenching for LA because we had gone through it, and it's apocalyptic. And for us, the difference between LA and us is that we can't really see it. We're from the insides out. So all of us lost everything on the inside. We lost all our things, but our buildings were still standing. Whereas LA, it's just wiped out. And so it absolutely broke my heart. But it's the same idea, is that we all need to rebuild.
Clarissa, before we keep going, can you share specifically where you live?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So it's Hurricane Helene, and I live in the intercoastal in St. Petersburg, Florida. So pretty much everybody on the coast, if you had a one-story house, you had a 3 to 4 to 5, 6 feet of water in your house. So everybody just gutted for the next 3 weeks after that happened. We had to throw all of our contents from the inside of our house out on the street. And everywhere you looked, there were just piles and piles and piles of things. And it was shocking, just shocking. And so I know when it happened to LA, that shock, that just utter shock. And what do you do and where do you go and how do you start? And I kept thinking, I wish I could reach out to people to let them know, here's the steps you take.
Yeah, I have a question because you have always lived in a hurricane-prone area, and I need to admit, Clarissa and I are so close, yet we go years without talking. She's just one of those friends you can just pick up like nothing happened. And over the years, I have reached out to you when I hear about a hurricane warning. So my question is, with Hurricane Helene, did it feel different this time, or were you kind of like, here we go again?
Yeah, it was different this time because, well, first let me start that we have hurricanes frequently and we always sort of have a scare and then we think, okay, and it will come 4 inches from coming in our house or people will get a few inches. Nobody ever saw anything like this ever. And the night before on September 25th, I really had a feeling it was going to be bad because I follow these things like crazy ever since I moved to Florida. And they said Bonita Springs, which is about 5 or 6 hours south of us, was expected to have 2 to 4 feet of water. I knew if they were going to get 2 to 4, we were going to see 6 to 8. And as unbelievable as that seemed, because it was 100 miles offshore, Aim, and when there's a hurricane 100 miles offshore, that just doesn't happen, and I was saying to people, get ready. I even said to my husband and my son, put everything up as high as you can. We are going to get water. I don't know how much, but it's going to happen. And it was just really impossible for people to believe because it had been over 100 years and it wasn't a direct hit. It was so far offshore. So really, really, it caught people by surprise.
So tell me about the house. You raised your kids there. Like, when did you move in? What are your favorite memories?
We moved in February 2002 and we got married in June. You were there. Amy was at my wedding and she read there, which was awesome. And then I got pregnant right away. So we started having kids right away, which was awesome. So the memories, my husband comes from a huge family. There are 8 siblings and they all live in the area. So we had a lot of fun there. We just had people over for dinner. We hosted Thanksgiving. We were on the water there. So we would see dolphins and go paddleboarding and our kids would have friends over. It just was really, really just a lot of really good memories there.
That sounds so idyllic to see dolphins and paddleboard in your front yard. Yeah, because I would often think of you and wonder, is it worth it to live on the coast or is she nervous a lot? And is it worth it?
That's a good question. And it was, I remember thinking like, is this worth it? But the truth is when a hurricane is coming, we have a lot of notice, which I'm really grateful for, 5 to 6 days to prepare. And that part is nerve-wracking, but it's maybe a few weeks total out of the entire year. So most of the year is peaceful and calm. And then hurricane season hits, but we don't really worry until we see a storm coming up.
And are there years where you don't have to worry at all?
We had 10 years where we had no hits in Florida at all. None. And then we've kind of just gotten hit after hit after hit in the last few years. Everybody's hoping, that was it, that now we're going to see some grace. So
it's like out here in Los Angeles. People live in gorgeous homes, and there's the threat of mudslides, earthquakes, fires. And it's worth it, right? Because it's so idyllic. So tell me, knowing the water was coming, were you able to get things out of there, put things up high? Were you able to salvage or save anything?
Well, what's so funny is every hurricane, I stuff my car with stuff. And I have to tell you, I had hurricane fatigue. And I think a lot of people did. What it is that you're so tired of packing everything up and then unpacking everything. You just think, you know what, it is what it is. So I didn't take as much as I usually take. I took the important things. So I was grateful for that. But then there were other things that I forgot. Like I had a bin that had our wedding album and our baby books. And I forgot that at the front door. So that still devastates me. There were some computers that were down on the floor. We had a TV down on the floor that got ruined, but then a couple of the computers were up. So it came right up to like our desk line. So anything that was on desks or tables or countertops was saved. Everything else was destroyed.
Wow. Can you sort of walk us through how it impacted your kids, you, your husband, the initial aftermath?
Cadence is 22, just turned 22, and Jackton just turned 18. So Cadence was actually already in Orlando with most of her stuff, and I was really grateful for that. And Jackton doesn't have a lot, but I did tell him, to put things up on his desk. And initially, when we heard the news, because people were getting on the island, we couldn't get on the island for a long time because this is awful, but they found, it chokes me up. People died. So they had to go from house to house before we could get on the island. And we heard that everybody got 4 to 5 feet of water, which meant that anything that was either on our desks or up high was destroyed. So my husband was able to get on before we did, thank God. But, we had sewage running through our house. When he got in there, it just stank to high heaven. It was an absolute mess. But he said it looks like we got just under 3 feet. So everything on the desk was safe. So we thought that we lost everything. I left my work computer. I'm a professional photographer, and I have a Mac that I use all my work on my Mac for films and everything, and I left it, which I've never done. So I thought that I lost that, which was devastating. I did bring all my hard drives and that kind of thing, but anyway, it was saved. And I'm sure LA can feel this. Even if you find a wedding ring, any little thing that you find that you salvage, you're grateful for. Suddenly, everything else is just stuff, and you kind of don't even remember what you lost. I had friends coming in and emptying our house, and I said, I don't even want to know what we lost. Just take it, because what does it serve me? If it's gone, it's gone. I don't even want to know. So
it's so overwhelming and unfathomable. All your clothes, all your memories, just wow.
A lot of clothes. Some clothes were saved. They were up high or hanging up high in the closet, but some not. So we kind of like half and half shoes, half clothes, that kind of thing. I did stick like my favorite pair of shoes up high in the closet just in case. So I was grateful that I did that. It's amazing how when you think you lose everything, the things that you can find mean so much, and yet they also mean nothing. I mean, honestly, when it comes down to it, your loved ones being safe is the bottom line. And it puts into perspective what really matters in life.
Yeah. So where did you go when you evacuated? And is that where you stayed?
We went to one of my husband's brothers up in Safety Harbor. It's up high, and we felt safe there. We go there usually for every evacuation. We go to Tony and Jessica's house. And, everybody lost power. God, I mean, it's just shocking it's sort of like the losing power is something we'd all been through before. We sort of go through the routine. We all lose power. We can't get home. Then we finally get home. And then we're grateful that we didn't flood, or we get a few inches. But this was catastrophic, just absolutely gutting. And not only, for us, but to see our neighbors and everybody we love and our family. We had 3 other family members who also lost their home.
Wow. I did not realize so many of your family members, really your whole community. It's heartbreaking. Would you say that your grief process follows the stages by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross? Denial, bargaining, anger, sadness, acceptance. And then there's a new one she came out with later with David Kessler, meaning.
Definitely. What's funny is that I've always kind of set myself up to prepare mentally that this could happen. And I've always sort of surrendered the house. I literally leave and I say, okay, God, if it's meant to go, it's going. It'll teach me a lesson, but please protect it. And we've been fortunate up to now. I think that the mental preparation really, you just can't, for any kind of grief, you think you can prepare yourself for losing somebody, for losing your home, for anything that you might go through. You try to mentally prepare, but until you go through it, you really don't know. And I do believe that, to answer your question, I do believe it's a lot and very similar to all the stages of grief. I was in denial. I was in shock. I was overwhelmed, very overwhelmed. The idea of having to take all the steps that we had to take. If someone had given me a list of all the things that I was going to have to do, I probably just would have had a nervous breakdown. So you just sort of do the next right thing. And it was very bonding with my neighbors, I have to say. A lot like 9/11, it felt like that, because it was a tragedy and a catastrophe that happened to all of us. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just my husband. It wasn't just my family. It's everyone in our entire community. And not only our community, all the beach communities up and down the West Coast, which is it's really, truly unfathomable.
So it's been very unifying, and you feel like you have community around it.
Yeah, it's been very unifying. And I think, we've all sort of leaned on each other to find out what we need to do next. We've not always gotten it correct, or we've been given information and then the information changes. So that's been sort of frustrating as far as it's been conflicting information.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that, the community aspect, the next steps. But before we do, can you say a little bit more about your family, how your daughter, your son, your husband processed this, and how you've gone through it together?
Believe it or not, this has brought my husband and I even closer. I know that either you can, fight and get a divorce, or you get closer. And I think it's brought all of us closer. The kids, I think I felt more for the kids than anything, because this is their childhood home. It still hits me. Sorry. Yeah, like it hits when you don't realize, they grew up there their whole lives, and we still haven't knocked it down yet, but we need to. And we're going to rebuild in the same spot, and we're building it as similar as possible to our current house, just to give them some kind of stability in a way. It was really hard to see my daughter come home and see it for the first time, and to take our son there for the first time and go through it. That reality, that hit me. That's when it really hit me the hardest.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that you're crying, because this is what grief looks like. You have days where you feel the resilience and we're going to rebuild and everything's okay and we're all healthy and the important things. And then it's the magnitude of it just hits you, the loss you've endured. So can you talk a little bit about, you're all kind of in it together. How are you getting your information, you and your entire community, of what steps to take?
Right. Well, FEMA was one, so they had to come out and do their assessment. Of course, there's thousands of different workers. I mean, we had people from all over the country come and try to assess these homes. Just like LA, there's thousands upon thousands of homes that were flooded. I don't even know how many, 127,000 total, like on the whole coast. It's just mind-boggling. So we had to do that, and then we had to figure out, do we knock down, do we rebuild? Then we had to get substantial damage letters. And if you didn't get the right percentage, or some people want to rebuild and they can't if they've got a high substantial damage letter. The assessments were very, very inconsistent. And so there's been a lot of turmoil kind of with that, but it's been helpful. We've got, a rebuild group that we're working together with our own community, Reddington, and we've got, I think, 3 or 4 different contractors that are going to come in and help us all. We've already gotten together with an architect to rebuild and get our plans and all of that. That's been the good part of it, is that we're not alone and none of us feel alone. And we have a WhatsApp thread, so we all talk to each other about what needs to be done. And if anybody has an issue, they ask a question. So that's been really helpful, I would say, is to have a WhatsApp thread with your community, because we can go on there and ask any questions at any time.
Yeah. So share with us, where are you right now? I know you lived with your mother-in-law, with Jackton and your husband for a while, and now you're in an apartment?
We were really, really fortunate to be able to live with her. I love my mother-in-law. I'm so blessed. I've got the best mother-in-law in the world. She's one of my closest friends. And so I think it was hard for her in a way, is that, she's 91 and she lived on her own. And here we come in and for 4 months, and then we knew it was time to move out, and that this was going to take a while, that we would need to get an apartment. So I think the shell shock of that, I think part of me I'm going to cry again. I just wanted the shelter of like a mom figure,
Totally.
There was something really comforting about living with her. because it felt like going home, even though it wasn't my home.
Yep.
So I think that that's what I was kind of holding on to, was the security of family. And I really wasn't sure what to do. I mean, there were a lot of days where I thought, I just don't know what to do. And then other days where I would feel like I got it. I know exactly what I need to do. So that's the stages too, of like, I'm sure what I need to do. And then I have no idea what I need to do.
Totally.
Like everybody knows, when you're in decision making, it's so hard. Once you make the decision, then you're good. Then you can move forward. So once we made the decision that we were going to look for a place to live, that's what we started to do. But that was hard too. We were looking at houses that were, dilapidated, for very expensive. I mean, they're very expensive. And we were thinking, we've got to save money to be able to rebuild. We can't just be paying all this money for rent. And then another friend, one of our neighbors, said that she was living in an apartment building. And that didn't even occur to me, because I thought, I lived in an apartment when I was in New York. I'm done with that. I don't want to do that. I like living in a house. But we were open and we started looking, and we found this amazing place, and we got an incredible deal. And we're so grateful. I mean, thank God.
Thank God. Because there's probably such a shortage of short-term housing available down there. And I know out here for a while, prices were being jacked up. So I'm so glad you found that, Clarissa. And I loved something you just said. You said something like, when you make a decision, you know the action to take and you're good to go. And I know for me, well, I should ask you, were there days where you would wake up and you knew what you had to do, and then you'd just sort of get hit with the grief or fatigue? I know that that's happened to me in grief, where I wake up and I'm good and I'm thinking, okay, I got this. And I have a whole plan for the day. And then at a certain point, I'm just like, yeah, I'm good. I need to rest. Do you relate?
Yeah. And you know how grief is too. It just hits you when you least expect it. Yep. I remember when I got in my car, and it still can happen. In my car, I'll say, take me home, which means the apartment building, but it will take me to my home where I live. Oh. And so on the map, it will always be trying to take me home, and that will hit me all of a sudden. And it can wipe me out emotionally. And then, you go through what's wrong with me and how come I can't pull it together and blah, 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 blah. But I think, thank God, with things I've gone through in my life, and I've been through a lot of therapy and a lot of things, I know to have grace with myself. And I've learned from friends and other people who've been so open about their grief process that it is a process, and that the days where I feel like I can't get out of bed is normal, even though it doesn't feel normal, even though I want to, smack myself around and be like, come on, you got to get going. You got to make this happen. So there are the days where I do make it happen. And then there are days where I just feel like I can't get out of bed. I think I feel better now. And, here's the thing too, when you start to get some distance from the calamity or the catastrophe or the tragedy or the loss or whatever it is, when you get some distance from it, you can look back and think, no wonder I was feeling like that. No wonder. Why was I being so hard on myself? I would never say to a friend the things that I was saying to myself. If a friend was going through this, I would tell her all the supportive things. So I was trying to talk to myself the way that I would speak to a friend.
So good. So important.
We'll get there. It's okay. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to ask for help. I got a lot of help and a lot of support.
I'm so glad to hear that. And what you're saying is so important, because as a therapist, I'm constantly encouraging people, have self-compassion for yourself. Treat yourself like a precious child or one of your best friends. And it's a practice, truly. It always seems so easy to be so good to other people, and then with ourselves be like, hey, come on, you're still dealing with this? Get over it already. Or you already grieved that, or come on. And I always tell people it's a process. Grief is a process. If you cry in the middle of the day, you need to cry. If you're having moments of great joy out of nowhere, wonderful. If you're getting emo and nostalgic for a minute, it's okay. I always tell people, and I love this concept so much, that our bodies are meant to digest feelings, just like they're meant to digest food, and bring us back to a state of homeostasis. And people don't like pain. People don't like grief because it's messy. It's unpredictable. We don't like the unknown. But really, if you're going through any kind of loss or calamity, like you said, accept that it is a process and treat yourself like gold. So getting back to you, Clarissa, you've shared so much about all the community you've had around you, which is so invaluable to walk with people that are going through the same thing. Can you speak to other tools you've used to kind of get through this and be resilient?
Yeah, it's, support for me is always so important. And I learned that early on, thank God. And I'm in a group right now called California Healing, which has been instrumental in getting me through. I just had a lot of people, praying for us and there for us. A really, really good friend of mine started a GoFundMe for us, which was really difficult to accept. But that was the sort of thing where I had to say, Clarissa, I'm a photographer and I rely 95% on tourism, and tourism was obviously gone. So I really didn't know what I was going to do as far as work. And even my husband's building where he works, he's a physical therapist, in the building that he works at flooded as well. So all the patients there, all the residents there that he works for and helps were all sent to Miami and Sarasota. So he also was low on work. So not only did we lose our house, we lost income.
Wow.
Really, really scary. The fact that people came forward financially helping us was absolutely incredible and really, really hard to accept. But to this day, unbelievably grateful because they helped us get through that transition financially, because that's a whole nother thing that people have to worry about. What about work? What about your job? What if your business burned down or was flooded? I mean, our entire community was flooded. So all the people that work out on the beach, they were all out of work. I mean, think about the loss of work and loss of wages. And it is mind-blowing.
Wow. I mean, even if you had work, being able to actually go to work and do your job when you've been through that kind of devastation would be so hard,
Yes.
Wow. Anyway, you shared a little bit about California Healing. Can you share more about that with our listeners? Because it is pretty incredible.
I'm an admin and a facilitator, and I've been there since the beginning, but I mean, it's not me.
Yeah.
But I feel really grateful to be a part of it. And it's a support community, a faith support community for women. It's really, truly incredible. It's led by China Phillips Baldwin. So she started it coming from California preaching, which she's got a YouTube channel. And she was going through a really, really rough time and just felt she needed support. So she started this kind of prayer support group, and it's been growing ever since. And it's phenomenal.
Yeah, so it's on Zoom, correct?
Yes.
So it's available to any woman anywhere, and these groups are facilitated multiple times a week, right?
Yes.
It's really incredible. And do you want to share out loud, and I'll certainly put it in the show notes, how people can find a California Healing group?
Yes. So go to California Healing, not with a G, just an N, healing.com.
So californiahealing.com. And Clarissa, is there anything I didn't ask or you want our listeners to know?
I think you said, like, what were I know you had asked earlier, what were the takeaways? And what would you advise someone going through this? I would say my heart is just so with LA right now. And I know even 6 months out, a lot of people are not back home. That's the reality. And that's hard because I think what got me through is I kept thinking, well, I'll get back home. And now the reality is knowing it's going to be a year, until I get back home. And it's never going to be what it was before. And that's the grief part. But my faith and everything tells me it will be better. So that's what kind of gets me through. It won't be what it was before, but it can be better. And I think for hurricane season, for people who are going to be facing that, for sure, move your cars to high ground. A lot of people lost their vehicles. We sealed our doors. This is probably a key thing. I learned during a flood in Sarasota that there was one business that didn't get any water, and he had taken the clear silicone caulk and put it all around the doors, and he didn't get any water in his house. Well, we had bought some, but it was 20-minute fast drying, which was a mistake because it would have had time to dry. And so it did help. Otherwise, we would have had 5 feet, but we had a little less than 3 feet. So that's what, saved things that were on our counter. But sealing the doors, there are these things, gadgets that people buy to seal the door that are really expensive that really didn't work at all, because if it breaches it, then it just keeps the water in your house.
Wow. Okay, so remember that clear silicone caulk around your doors. You don't have to spend a ton of money on things that aren't going to work, and it takes 20 minutes to dry, so get it done. Anything else, Clarissa, that comes to mind?
Gosh, make sure your paperwork is ready to go. I would say the biggest thing, because I did tell people this, expect that it's going to happen and be prepared. Take everything. Because if it doesn't happen, amen. And I've always had that attitude. And like I said, I had hurricane fatigue. And so I was sort of like, whatever, I'm done. I just am so tired of doing this. And
so it's almost like out here, we were told to have a go bag ready because we were in a fire evacuation zone. And I think that taught me in the future, I'm just going to have a list ready to go. So if I'm in that position again, I can grab all that stuff quickly and be ready. Things like passports, baby books, little mementos that will help you remember your history in case the worst happens. So anyway, getting back, Clarissa, I wanted to ask you 2 more questions. I know you're a woman of great faith, so I can ask. 1, how do you feel God grew you through this situation? And 2, what would you say the gifts are? I know these are really hard questions if anybody is in the midst of a catastrophe. Nobody wants to think about this stuff, but you're out 6 months. Even though that's still the eye of the storm, you haven't landed yet in your new place. But can you speak to those questions at all?
I love that. How did God grow you? Because we've been talking about that in California Healing too. And he did. I've really learned a long time ago. I read a book called Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? And not that I'm a good person. I'm just like any other human being trying to get through life. But I don't feel like God did this to us. I don't feel like this was a punishment. This is earth. This is what happens. We know that there are risks, and there's risks wherever we are. Just like you said, there's fires, there's earthquakes, there are, rainstorms and flooding, and there's everything, snowstorms, blizzards. So we can't avoid any of that, just being human beings on earth. But God really got me through just knowing that anything we face, we can get through. And people I know have gone through much worse. And I think that helped me too. I love when people are honest about what they've been going through, because life is hard sometimes. It can be amazing and it can be rough. And I think I've always wanted to get through easy. Like, how can I get through this easy? Just give me the plan. I want to be happy. Just give me my big career. Just give me this, and then I'll be happy. And what I know is the moment is the moment. And I can find something to be joyful in now, whether or not I have my house. And so I was catching myself going, when I was doing that, when we get back in our house, when we get our brand new rebuilt house, no. And then I thought, Clarissa, no, you are living today. And here's where you are today. You're in your apartment today. And God is truly helping me get through that. Every time I start to get a little bit wobbly, I just think, God, just set me straight. Show me how to step in this moment. And the grace that I feel is so tremendous and powerful. And you know me, I didn't believe in God years ago. And the reason I believe now is because I'm feeling grace through a tragedy. And that to me is what God is. It's not that he's giving me everything I want. It's that I'm feeling peace through a terrible time.
I love that. I love that.
The fact that I can feel peace and joy in amongst this is that's everything. And it's proof to me that that's God. Life happens, God helps. And he has truly helped me get through this.
And I think what's so helpful about what you said is when you're going through something so hard, you don't have to let it totally sink you like everything's bad. I know as a young person, I did that. If I was going through something, in my opinion, that was really, really tough, it was like my whole life sucked. And that was never true. So it's holding the pain and also experiencing moments of joy or hopefulness. And that's life. Life is nuanced. And the other thing I love that you said, and I think it's almost the human condition for people to make their happiness conditional. When I get the thing or achieve the success or make the money or have the baby, I'll be happy. I'll finally land. And that is not true. You know, I always think the past is over. The future never comes. All we have is right now.
So true. Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. So anyway, I kind of think we're winding down. I sort of feel like I need to wrap this up with like a punch list of what has really gotten you through. And when I think about it, it's your unshakable faith and leaning into that, having the support of those women in California healing, and community, being with people that are going through the same thing and really supporting one another, and developing self-compassion for yourself and feeling the feelings as they come up and not letting them totally sink your ship. You know, you have your grief, but then you may have great moments with your husband today, or dinner with your mother-in-law, or see a beautiful butterfly in the wind. So just kind of holding it all and being here now, which is all we got. Anything else you want to share with our listeners before we sign off, Clarissa?
Oh my gosh. First of all, if anybody's listening and you've gone through anything like this recently, there's been a lot of stuff happening. I'm so sorry. And my heart goes out to all of you. I would say, yeah, lean in on your friends, lean in on your faith. If you don't feel a faith, just ask, because it's amazing what can happen when you just say, show me, prove it. Yeah. Really, truly, it is amazing. And I would say, make lists and just do the next right thing and just take one step at a time. I mean, that's such a cliche. It really is, but it is for a reason. It's just one step at a time, because I can get overwhelmed with all the things that I know I need to get done. So I just have to stop and go, just do one thing. Some days, that's all I could do. One thing. One. And when I'm feeling like I can't even do one thing, then to just pick up my phone and make a call and ask for help.
Yeah.
Really ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. And that's the hardest thing.
Yes. I meant to talk about that earlier. I loved what you said about letting people help you when you talked about your friend wanting to start the GoFundMe. And I have so many friends out here in Los Angeles that were so uncomfortable with that. But just know, we want to help. People want to help. When you're witnessing things like this, you feel so powerless and you want to know you're doing something to contribute. And it's interesting because a lot of people, particularly women, have trouble with receiving, whether it's a compliment, a gift, you do them a favor, or you make them the center of attention. Listen, I'm genderizing and I apologize, but most women I know are very comfortable nurturing and giving and caretaking, and they have a lot of trouble asking for help and receiving. And I think it's been a gift for you to be able to do both, because you are such a nurturing, loving person. And Clarissa, thank you so much for coming on. I think this interview is going to be so helpful to so many people. And just the way you've walked through this, leaning on God, leaning on your loved ones, receiving help, helping and supporting others, and just walking through it with grace is really inspirational.
Well, thanks, Amy, for having me. I'm so grateful, and I hope it made any kind of sense whatsoever. And even if it helps one person to get through. And
Wait, before we wrap up, how can people reach you, Clarissa, if they want to ask about California Healing, your photography business, anything?
Yeah, there's a couple places. I was going to say, if you have any questions or any needs or anything, you could contact me through CaliforniaHealing.com. So it's CaliforniaHealing.com or CDHphotography.com. So those are a few places that you could reach me, or through Amy. So Amy, thank you so much for having me. It's really amazing talking to you and catching up. You're incredible. I'm excited for you for all of this. And I just feel really blessed to to hang out with you.
Thank you, Clarissa, so much for being here and sharing so honestly and vulnerably about one of the hardest things you've ever had to go through. And I love you.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you so much for joining us for Here's the Memo Conversations. If you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to follow, subscribe, reach out, and most importantly, share the episodes that inspire you with the people you care about. Remember, you are not alone, and that's your memo.